In this lesson, we will be comparing and ordering real numbers. So let's look at this first example. I noticed right off the bat one of my symbols didn't come through. There should be a square root sign right there. So we are comparing 5/4, which is a fraction, to a square root, the square root of 2. And I find it easiest if I have them both in the same format. And I really like decimals better than any other format. So I'm going to remember that this this fraction bar on my calculator means to divide. So I would take 5 divided by 4. And that comes out to be 1 and 25/100. So the left side of this comparison is worth 1 and 25/100. And then on this side, I used my radical key on my calculator. And it came out to be a crazy number. It was 1.414213562. Now, I probably don't need all of that information because if you look, I only have 2 decimal places. So I really can just kind of ignore this because it's not necessary for what I need right now. And I know that 1 and 25/100 is less than 1 and 41/100. You can think about it as money if you want. $1.25 is less than $1.41. So let's try this example. First thing I notice is that my radical sign is missing. The radical sign is only above the 7. So I have the square root of 7 divided by 2 compared to 1 and 3/10. I want you to pause me. I want you to use your calculator and find the decimal equivalent of this side and go ahead and compare. When you are ready to check, come back to me. So when I used my radical sign and I took the square root of 7 and I divided it by 2, my calculator gave me this crazy answer. I'm not sure I need all of that, but I notice over here that my beginning is exactly the same. So I need to know that there can be a 0 at the end. So this is like $1.30. Now if I cut it off and all of the rest of this goes away, I have $1.32 on the left, or 1 and 32/100 compared to 1 and 30/100 on the right. So my answer is this is greater than 1 and 3/10. All right, on this example, I notice I have a couple problems. So let's just scribble this out. And it was supposed to be the negative square root of 8. Would you go ahead and pause me while you compare 4 and 4/5 to the negative square root of 8? And when you're ready, go ahead and start me up again. All right, now on this one, you probably could just use your number sense because you know that this is a positive number, this is a negative number, and whenever you have that, the positive is going to be greater than the negative. But I asked you to do your decimal equivalents, so we have 4 and 8/10 on the left side, and when I used my radical key on my calculator, I ended up with negative 2. And then there was all sorts of stuff back here, blah, 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 blah. I don't need all of that because I know that 4 and 8/10 is greater than negative 2 and 8/10. All right, let's switch gears here for a minute, and we're going to order the following from least to greatest. Again, I know that they're all in different forms, so I feel that if we could get them in the same form, decimals in particular, it's a lot easier to compare things and put them in order from least to greatest. I'm noticing that my square root sign did not show up, so I put that in. All right, so 1 and 1/10, that's already good to go. My 9/7, that's a fraction, but I remember that that fraction bar, it means to divide. So that's going to come up to be 1 point, and you know what, I'm really just interested probably in the first couple decimals, so I'm going to round to the nearest hundredth, so that would be 1 and 29/100. Let me change colors. I know that pi will round to 3 and 14/100. I know that pi divided by 2 on my calculator comes out to be, negative, will come out to be negative 1 and 57/100 rounded to the nearest hundredth. And this one will be a negative 2. So now I'm looking at the following. I'm trying to put these in order from least to greatest. Well, I know my negatives are going to be the smallest. And the furthest away you are from 0, or on a number line, the farthest you are to the left, the smaller the number is. So negative 2 is going to be my first number. But I'm going to erase that because I want it in the original format. So I'm going to look back up. Negative 2 is the smallest, but originally it was given to me as the negative square root of 4. That one's done. Then as I get closer to 0, I'm looking at this negative 1 and 5/7. I'm going to go back up and write it in its original form. So originally it was negative pi divided by 2. That one's done. Then, if I'm not sure, because I only have one decimal place here, remember I can always add a 0. So then I can think about money, $1.10, $1.29, $3.14. So my $1.10 is going to be the next smallest. The original form was 1 1/10. That one is done. Next comes this $1.29, but originally it was 9/7. And that leaves me with pi as the greatest number in this case. So in the original form, here are my numbers from smallest to greatest. All right, let's look at this one. And of course, my radical signs are missing. So I have the square root of 8 compared to the negative square root of 4/100 compared to 1.7373, and finally pi divided by 4. I want you to go ahead and convert all of these using your calculator, probably to decimal form. That seems to be the easiest, and put them in order from smallest to greatest. And then when you're ready for checking, come on back. All right, the square root of 8, when I use my radical sign on my calculator, and again, I'm really just going to kind of look at to the nearest hundredth unless I need more than that. This is 2.83 rounded. When I used my radical sign on the second option, I ended up with negative 2/10. If you want to put a 0 behind that to get 2 decimal places, feel free. This one, I'm going to go ahead and round to the nearest hundredth, since that's what I'm really kind of looking at. So that's going to round to 1 73/100. And finally, when I put pi into my calculator and I divide it by 4, it will round to 0 79/100. So now I want to put them in order using the original format. So I know that this negative is going to be the smallest of the 4. And in the original format, it was negative square root of 4/100. That's done. I'm going to move on. So I have $2.83, $1.73, and 79 cents. The smallest there is the 79 cents. So I'm going to look back up at the original form, and it was pi divided by 4 comes next. That one's done. Following that is my 1 73/100, but remember, original form. So it originally was 1.7373. That one's done, which leaves my square root of 8 as the biggest. So here's my bloopers. I don't ever seem to be able to get through a video without a few of them, and so I want to point out, in case you noticed, of course you noticed, where I made some mistakes. So in slide number 5, when I was talking about this number, I called it 1 5/7. Of course, it's not 1 5/7. It's really 1 57/100. It didn't change the answer though, so I didn't go back to change the slide. Second blooper, on slide number 6, I rounded this number and said it rounded to 1 73/100. Well, of course it doesn't. If I rounded, it would actually round, let me change this to an approximately, 1 74/100. But again, it didn't change my answer, so I'm not going to go back and fix the slide. And finally, you might have noticed some squeaking in the background. So Roxy, my dog, was trying to play while I was making the video, and she really wanted me to play with her squeaker toy. So if you heard the squeakers, that's what was going on.